This college football coverage is sponsored by Bob Moore Kia of Edmond.
After watching the tape, the last game was pretty much what we said in the post-game conference, that we were really flat. I thought Missouri State did a great job. They played really hard, had a good plan. Quarterback made some plays, but I wasn't real fired up about our team and how they played. It was kind of the first sign of an immature team in not preparing well, and we had warned them throughout the week, and sometimes you have to learn on the run, and so it wasn't a great effort from our standpoints in preparation, which is my fault. I'm obviously the guy in charge of getting the team ready, but need to have a better plan and a better operation each week in order to continue to compete throughout the rest of the season. So I know there'll be a lot of talk about JW, but as always, we never answer questions on any type of injury, myself or the coaches or the players. He's really being evaluated this afternoon. Unlike some of the speculation that where he's already been diagnosed with certain injuries, they must have more information than I do, because I know that we're supposed to find out about 6 o'clock tonight exactly the extent of his injury. Our plan is for him to take his boot off and see where he's at on Tuesday. I do know from the information I got today at noon that it's not as severe as what was originally thought. So that's good news. To what extent, we won't know. So we'll just move forward from there. We've had to use multiple quarterbacks a number of years since I've been the coach here, and we expect our team to compete, and we expect those guys to make plays and to move the ball and score points, and that's what we'll do. So we'll move forward. We're playing a very good football team. I mentioned in the post game that this team is very capable of competing and winning games in this league. They're a very mature team. Essentially, they've got everybody back other than their quarterback, and the quarterback has played fairly well, in my opinion, this year. Has made some plays for him, a lot like the guy they had last year. They're a very well coached team. They've got speed. They're located in a great part of the country for recruiting, and it shows. They've done a nice job, and they have good players, and we'll have our work cut out for us on Saturday night.
No surprise then that they've built the program this quickly.
They're in a great location, in my opinion, for what they're trying to accomplish. You know, I've said it a number of times, but there's 350 Division I players, give or take a few, in the state of Texas. I don't know the numbers to be exact. I'm going to guess that probably 325 of those are going to be from Central Texas East. There's not as much population playing the game of football in West Texas, and they're located in a great spot, and they've got a good guy leading their program.
Talk about Coach Coker and your relationship with him.
Well, he's always been a very special part of our family. You know, obviously he coached myself and Cale, and he's got a great personality. He's got good people skills. He's been around good coaches. He's smart. I don't know all the details of whatever happened down in Miami. I know that he was one game away, and arguably a call that could have gone either way, from winning 2 national championships in a row. And you know, I don't know what his long-term goals are. In my opinion, he'll either come out at some point and say, this is where I want to be and where I want to retire, or at some point he's going to be at another job, a big job. I would think some athletic director could really sell to his board of regents that I want to hire this guy to take over our program, in my opinion, with the job he's done in a short period of time.
You talk about Garmin and what he showed you stepping in after not playing a game in 5 years.
He played fairly well. There's times he made mistakes. We'd like to have some throws back. I'm sure he would. For the most part, it's never like what people think it is until you step out there and play. There have been a few players at our level. I use Johnny Manziel as an example, that showed up on the scene and played very good right from the start all the way through the end of his career. Most players, it takes a little time to get used to and adjusted to the speed of the game.
What most impressed you about his performance on Saturday? While you said he made mistakes, what stood out to you from Saturday?
I thought his demeanor was really good. He handled himself well. It was good, and it's important that his approach and his attitude was a positive manner, and I think the team related and felt comfortable with him in the game.
What would you expect from him if he's got to go this week? You know, I would imagine with Walsh questionable, he'll be taking the top first-team reps for most of the week. What would you expect? How would you expect that to help him next week?
Well, we'll find out for sure what we'll do with JW's reps on Wednesday. But if he has to take the majority of the reps, we expect him to get better. He's gotten quite a few reps in preseason camp. He's had more reps than essentially any two we've had prior to having the three guys compete for the job a couple years ago.
Does having a strong-armed quarterback who can really spin it like that change anything offensively for you, as opposed to a running quarterback?
He brings a little different type of style of offense to our team, and I mentioned that in preseason that this camp was different than the other years because there is some difference in the type of game plan that we would use with him if JW is not in the game, and so we make that adjustment and go on. We've done it before.
The receivers that you have, talented, athletic guys that would, I would assume, get the ball in their hand and do really well for the offense. Does having a quarterback who can really get it there fast, quickly, does that change anything? Like what I'm asking is, do the receivers now get more balls or more passes thrown their way? Or
could be. Again, a lot of that's determined on the team that we're playing and how they defend us. If they want to play pass, then we run it. If they want to play run, we'll pass it, hopefully with success. He is a different style quarterback than JW, and I think the future is kind of yet to be seen. We'll find out how he plays in crucial situations, and whether he's in there full time, part time, or depending on the health of JW. The more reps he gets over a period throughout the season, he should improve.
Mike, you talked about the number of reps that your different quarterbacks have gotten. It wasn't that many years ago where you used to say, I want my number one quarterback to get most of the reps. What has changed in your philosophy there? Is it just the way quarterbacks are getting hurt? Is it some advice from somebody? What's changed there?
I think this just the percentages of quarterbacks not making it through the year that play in this conference. And you guys do a better job of that, but you can go back and look at the teams that have been in this league and multiple quarterbacks they've had to use over the last 5 years compared to what it was maybe for the previous 15 before that. And for that reason, we've distributed a few more reps to a backup guy, and even we worked some threes. When Les was here and I was working for him, the threes didn't even get reps. The twos got very few. We would go a practice. You guys have been at them. If we had 50 plays, Josh Fields was going to get 45 of them, and the two guy would get 5 plays, and that was it. But we just think that it's different nowadays, and we have to change with the times.
Injuries to the running quarterbacks that you just alluded to. I mean, injuries are part of football, but when you're putting your quarterback out there, there's obviously some inherent risk. This is the fad. This is the thing that everybody's doing to try to get an upper hand on defense. You just accept that injuries are maybe part of it when you're using running quarterback.
I think so. There's some evidence that shows that there's a better chance they could get hurt some. His last injury was in the pocket throwing the ball. And so I don't think that we can just push the side and say that a running quarterback may not get or is not more prone to getting injured. But he, in this game, supposedly when he got injured, I think it was maybe his second or third carry, and it was the first quarter. And he hasn't had that many carries this year when you talk about playing in 5 quarters. I think what you're saying is true. Just common knowledge that tells you that if a guy's running, he has more of a chance to get hit. He had done a good job of kind of protecting himself. And supposedly he got hurt last Saturday down near the goal line, and it really wasn't a hit. The interesting part of injuries in our game today at all positions is some of them happen when their feet are planted and they get pushed a different direction. For example, Sam Bradford. And by no means am I trying to – there's been a lot of people try to diagnose JW in the last day, so I don't want to jump on board. But, he was in a situation where a guy was on him and just kind of collapsed him, and it wasn't a hit and it wasn't below the waist. It was just an unusual position. And so it's hard to really get a grasp on why it happens. But I think your defensive players are bigger and stronger and faster than they ever have been. It's the law of physics, the collisions, and people are there more. And I think that's more of an issue than it has been years ago.
Do you think is there also, you were a running quarterback, but a wishbone quarterback. Was it more downhill? Was it more straight ahead, less cuts, and maybe less susceptibility to some taking hits at weird angles?
I can't answer that. When I was in school, Jamel Holloway got hurt on a non-contact open field trying to make a cut in space, and he was injured. And then we've had players that are injured the same way. And then Wes Lunt got hit and was injured. JW was tackled and was injured low and was tackled high the first time. So I'm not sure. I just know that the reason that I answered yes to John's question is because there are more quarterbacks, I think, across the country, and particularly in this league, that are injured playing in games than what it used to be 10 years ago.
Why do you think you guys have had such success getting, whether it's preparation or whatever, getting the backup quarterback ready?
Our offense is very simple, and it's a few plays and multiple reps, and that's what we believe in our opinion. Somebody else may have a better way, but we think that gives us the best chance for success.
Mike, you've talked about two different kinds of quarterbacks, though. What's your deadline for deciding what game plan you're going to go with?
Well, the game plan won't alter a lot. It will some. We still have a base system that any quarterback that's played here over the last 6 years can execute. And then there's a variation that goes one way or the other depending on who that is. There was even some differences with JW and Clint, just not as much as what people in the public would have thought prior to the season when I said they're pretty much the same, but they do some things different. We need to get JW out of the boot Tuesday and find out where he's at. And after that, prior to Wednesday's practice, we need to make a decision unless we think that he has an injury that will improve over a short period of time. Sometimes that happens. Blackman had a very similar injury his year here when we played Oklahoman. We had the week off. I think we had the week off. I can't remember, but originally we thought he was going to be a 4 to 6 week guy, and he actually came and played some against Oklahoma. Now, he wasn't very good, but he still played some. I think he had 8 or 9 catches, but he was still injured. So, and JW had an injury a year or two ago, and we thought it was going to be a season-ending injury, and he was able to recuperate, and his body healed quicker than what most normal human beings' bodies healed.
Is there a sense, because of the toughness he showed, not just that time, but other times on campus, that he'll come back from this faster as well?
Well, he's going to come back as quick as he can. There's no question with him, but from a medical side, we won't know that till later today. He's being evaluated, I think, at 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon, and then we'll know where he's at.
If they give you X number of weeks and he comes back 2 or 3 weeks sooner, it wouldn't surprise you.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Mike, last year you had the benefit of coaching one of the most experienced, probably the most experienced team you've ever had. Now, talk about watching them on tape and knowing what Larry's got, because basically he's got what you had last year.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Preparation, for example, I used the last game. Players understand the importance of pregame activities, just everything that's involved in experience in special teams and on the field, off the field. We had some young corners that got beat on double moves. They haven't seen it live. They've seen it in practice, but it's not been the same. And so there's just a lot of factors that are out there. Offensive linemen, we were very below average last week based on the talent level and the people we were playing. You can say what you want, but you have to evaluate your team against the people that you're competing against so you don't get a false feeling of how good you really are or how bad you really are. And we just didn't play very well, and a lot of it had to do with young guys just trying to feel their way through.
Can experience make up for lack of speed, strength? Can that be an important enough factor?
Sure. Sean Lewis was a great player at the college level, in my opinion, but when you take measurables to play at the next level, in their opinion, he became very average. And we all thought, everybody has their own opinion, but I thought he was a really, really good college football player.
Mike, UTSA, what they've done coming from nothing, not having a program to where they are now, looks like they may be sort of trying to push towards being that non-conference opponent nobody wants a part of. Why do you think they've been able to get to this point in a relatively short time?
John asked that question. I was talking to him earlier and telling him that they're located in a great spot. They're you can get in a car and drive 4 hours from where they are, and they're going to have You need to ask Coach Coker this. 250 players they can offer within a 4-hour drive of their campus would be my guess.
What did you think of Garmin's preparation level overall, including like communication with you on the sideline between plays, all of that? More than just throwing it. But
well, he was fine. He and I visited several times about certain things, and I wanted to get a feel for what his response was so I would be able to put a barometer on how he was adjusting to being in the game, and he was fine. He's very low-key. He's quiet. He understands, and I thought he handled himself just fine. We'll find out in the future if he's in the game in a situation where he could be behind. The wind, rain conditions are a factor with quarterbacks. You really get a good indication of him more so in those situations than you do when you're in a game and you're ahead.
How immediate is your quarterback looking at you for the next play at the end of the play? You know what I mean? Is he immediately looking at you for the next play?
Yes.
As soon as the ball's spotted.
Mm-hmm. So it's been the same for years.
Within 5 seconds or so.
It should be quicker than that.
And he handled that part of it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What's your own personal preference? Would you rather have a strong arm pocket quarterback throw for 3,000 yards, or would you rather have a guy who can run around and make plays?
I answered that question a while back, and I think that most of us would rather have a guy that has the ability someday to play in the NFL no matter what he does, because they give you a chance to win. You can track college football, and teams that have a potential NFL quarterback usually win games. I think there has to be balance in the future in offensive football, and if a guy's strong enough and accurate enough to throw the ball successfully, then he can be an average runner and you can win. If he's a great runner, then he can be an average thrower. Unless you have a pure pocket quarterback that can just sit there and pick people apart, and then he doesn't have to run, he can just hand it off.
You had several games early in the season last year where your run game was average, and then out of the blue you run for 350 against Iowa State, I think. I mean, during the week of preparation, was that a strengthened emphasis on the run game, or did it just happen on game day that it worked out that way?
Well, we have to continue to work on it, and we're an average running team right now. We cover guys up pretty good, but we're not getting much movement. We're trying to develop a center and a guard and a tackle that haven't played the game. And there's adjustments going on right now. And, as I mentioned to you guys in August, that we know a lot more about our team in the middle of October. And that's really the truth. We'll find out where they're at, how they develop. We expect them to play better Saturday than they did last Saturday. And they have to continue to improve. If they don't, then our system's not working. The coaches aren't working. The practice plan, everything we're doing is somewhat malfunctioned if we're not getting better each week.
Mike, speaking to the offensive line, how much do you expect them to develop based off seeing the different looks and stems, and because Missouri State showed them some things they hadn't seen that you really have to communicate to pick up?
Well, they played a lot of 3 down and changed up some looks and things, and as I mentioned earlier, I thought they had a good plan. I thought they, when you look back at the game, they were a well-coached football team, and there's communication that goes on all the time up front, and the inexperience up front is largely in part to lack of communication, because the guys that are trying to communicate are trying to figure out what to do. And that's an issue. It's like a quarterback playing early in his career, a young guy. He's trying to figure out what's going on when he should be trying to decide where to throw the ball. And there's some of that goes on with young linemen.
Could you assess your confidence in Ben Grogan? He came back and made the last couple kicks of the last game, missed the 2 from the longer distance. Do you see his 3 misses? I think they were all wide left. Do you know if there are things that are correctable, and what's your confidence level in him right now?
Well, I think they're all correctable. I don't pretend to know the exact technique and fundamentals of what kickers do. I've asked him, and he understands. And I have 100% confidence in him because he's our best kicker. And we'll continue to put him out there. People say, well, you just need to go for it. Well, we're not in a game where you just go for it. There's a time in the game you kick field goals, and there's a time in the game you punt, and then there's a time you can go for it. But like last Saturday when we went for it on 4th and 2, that wasn't very smart. That was my fault. I was the one that wanted to do it. I was the one that called the formation in the play, and it was terrible. And I put us in a position that we couldn't have success right from the start for a couple reasons. But either way, I have confidence in him. If you watch the flight of his ball this year, it's much better than it was last year. He just missed those kicks by just a little bit to the left, and they were actually on, and then they kind of died off and fell to the left, and I think it's very correctable.
And is your confidence level, because he has the leg, you see, those kicks aren't short, right? So.
Right, but I'm trying to tell you that because he is the kicker, my confidence level in him is really high. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just telling you the truth. We're going to send him out there, and he's going to kick them.
You talked earlier about your offense being simple. How much has that played into being versatile to where you can adjust to different quarterbacks and their skills?
Both.
That's something that's somewhat new for you guys.
Right. The system we're in now is hybrid. It has to do with kind of my background, and then there's some with what Dana brought in here. There's still some of that in it. There's some from Monken. And then obviously Mike has some stuff in it that you saw over the last couple of years that we didn't have. And it's kind of all into a hybrid system that ultimately at the end of the day, I have to be comfortable with it. And then we go execute and try to take which parts of it we feel like gives us the best chance for success. And the reason for that is because I don't think we're always going to have the luxury of having a NFL-type quarterback or a pure drop-back passing-type quarterback. So you have to have some variation to your offense.
Mike, talk about perhaps pace of play with this group. Are you willing to back off a little bit, or are you still pressing and hurrying and trying to, run as many plays as you possibly can?
Fast as possible. Sometimes we have to back off based on what happens in the game, but we're trying to go. We practice as fast as possible. We want to go as fast as possible.
Have you
This
kept tabs
UTSA
on?
offense has a lot of pre-snap motion. How can that affect the inexperienced guys that you have on defense?
It's a factor. It was a factor last year, and we'll have to work really hard on it and be prepared. They're good at it. And they've got guys that are in that fly motion operation that are fast, and they've made plays.
Mike, you talked about the youth on the offensive line, but now that you've seen 2 games worth, where does Zach Crabtree fit in that learning curve? What have you seen out of him?
He's just very average at best. He's played in 2 games, and he's young, and he's got a good future and a bright future, and he's doing everything he can, but he's on a learning curve. It's going to take him some time.
Do you think he's got the most upside of those young guys just based on his physical ability?
Hard to tell. The 3 of them have played 2 games in their career.
It's pretty much on-the-job training for those guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. Practice isn't the same as games.
That's right. Yeah, speed of the game, and you just learn on the run.
Could you talk about Emmanuel Ogba and his roles on and off the field this year?
Well, he's obviously going to be a good football player, and I thought his energy level was average last week, and he needs to play harder, and he certainly has the ability. He's got a great future in this game, and he's been a good leader for us. He's a quiet leader. We've had tremendous success here in the past with having quiet leaders, and he kind of fits that mold.
Do you have any other expectations for him this year other than what you just said?
Expectations for him? Yeah, he needs to be a good leader and play hard for us every Saturday because he has that physical ability.
Is that kind of an example of guys playing well on the big stage against supposedly the best team in the country, and then coming home, you're away from home and you play that well, and then you come home, you got a home game and you're playing a FCS team that you should, at their words, should blow out. Is that part of that immaturity that you were referencing? I mean, is that all there is to it, or is it?
I don't know. I don't know how good we are. I mean, it could be a factor. We'll find out in about 5 weeks. But I know that the youth affected the way we prepared for the game, and we weren't very good, and we were flat coming out. Whether our team's any good or not, that's yet to be seen.
Have you kept tabs on how many parallels there are between what's happening at Texas right now and what happened with you your first year here?
I have not. I just, people walk by and throw things out at me, somebody's been let go or something, but I haven't actually followed it very close and did not. I saw the score of their first game, and then I saw about 10 plays of the game the other night, but I haven't really kept close tabs on what's going on.
Before you became the head coach, when you had the sense that you might become the head coach, you know what I mean? There was that window there. Mm-hmm. Did you know that you were going to clean house, or did you just go into it with everybody having a clean slate?
Clean slate. I've always been that way, as a clean slate. I believe in second chances, and I believe in trying to mold and develop young men, and they was that way from the start, and it still is today.
6 of those 8 that you ran off were pretty good players. I mean, and then you go into that season and
There's 4 starters and 2 part-time starters that year.
It can't be that easy, Mike, to throw away your own preconceived notions, can it? About a guy who you've known, or a group of guys who you've known as an offensive coordinator, assistant coach, and now you're the head coach, and you just cut it off right there. And say,
You talking about the players?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can. It's real easy. Honestly, it is. I still do it. I mean, I have guys that come in here as true freshmen, and they do some things that would just blow you away, unless you have teenage kids, and it probably wouldn't surprise you that much. But they do things that you look at them and say, really? I don't really understand that. And we don't do that, but I'm good with it. Okay, I don't hold grudges. I'm good. Here's where you're going to start. And there's a chance they may do a little bit of it again because you don't really change people that fast. And then we'll have to have another talk, and then it's a little more serious. And then if there's something else, they usually won't make it. But I make a lot of mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes in coaching. But that's one thing I feel like I've done a good job is I've been able to look them in the eye and say, listen, doesn't make a difference what's happened here. Here's how we move forward. And I did that from the start, and I still do it today. When guys come in with knucklehead stuff, I say, look.
All guys into your office, though, and say, here's how we're going to do things, and have a different conversation with them than you would have with other guys. Is that fair enough?
That's true. Yeah. And they're all different. You know, there's always that term out there, people say that you treat them all the same. That's not true. My 3 boys at home, I don't treat them the same because they're different. Their mental makeup's different. These players are all different. And so that's just my opinion. I'm sure that other people feel differently, but in my opinion, I'm able to sit and relax and be patient and look at it from their perspective. Because most of the time when they do it, there's a reason they've done it. They've probably done it all their life. So we know that's the problem. What's the solution? You know, we all work with people that are always telling you the problems. Well, that's easy. What are the solutions? And that's kind of the way I've approached it with the team.
How do things change for Mason Rudolph this week, and is he ready to play?
Well, the good news is he's been getting reps. And so we will continue with the same number of reps that he's gotten since the day he's arrived here. And his plan could change based on the information that I get tonight, and then how he feels tomorrow if we take the boot off.
Would you feel comfortable putting him on the field if he needed to?
I don't know yet. I don't have to answer that question. And I'm not saying that being detrimental to him, just he is a freshman. And that's a big can of worms to open in a lot of different areas. But the good news is he's been getting reps. So he can function out there with the ones. He can go out and play with the ones and direct traffic and do all the things our quarterbacks do. He knows the plays. He knows the reads. Now, that doesn't mean in the heat of moment he might not bust, but he knows what to do.
Would you feel more comfortable putting him out there? Like when you started, he had a Thurman Thomas and a Barry Sanders and Hartley Dykes.
I wish they were playing and I could put him out there with them because then it wouldn't matter who went out there. But no, he's doing fine. Mason's really doing good, and he's further ahead from a mental part than I ever was as a freshman, and because he got quality reps, I didn't get reps, and so I think he'll be fine. He just continues to learn. His attitude's good. He's got a good work ethic, and he's got a really bright future. We'll just have to wait and see whether the issue gets forced or we're able to let the thing play out.
What similarities would you point to in their circumstances between Brandon Wheaton taking, I can't remember how many years, 6 years off, 8 years off, playing baseball and coming in and doing what he did, and what Dax has gone through?
Very similar. Because Whedon was out of it for 4 or 5 years and traveled around the country, and Dax traveled around the country, and he was out of it for 45 years.
For a guy who's stuck that deep on the roster for a couple seasons, do you worry about his motivation, or are there any times where you thought that this is he had to really earn his way to this point?
Do I worry about his motivation or that he had to earn his way?
Well, just his motivation, being that he's on.
He's been good. And I've said this and I'll say it again. There's 127 players on our team right now. We usually carry 132. 85 of them are on scholarship. And those other guys that aren't, which was him for a long time, they got to really want to play the game. Because there's a 4-hour time demand, well, not for us, 3-hour time demand daily. Most places 4-hour a day, 20 hours a week. And while you're paying for your school, and now they get food and stuff, they usually didn't get anything. So you really got to want to play the game. And he did. He did a great job. He's always been a self-starter, and he's been motivated to learn. And that's why you do it, because you never know when you're going to be in the game.
So that's one difference between him and Whedon initially.
You know, Whedon had a little bit of the baseball, minor league baseball in him. You know, those guys travel on a bus and play so many games, they don't know what city they're in. Pranks all the time, things like that. And part of that was, one, he had a red shirt. Two, and you'd have to ask him this, I think he was just trying to kind of figure out what he wanted to do. He wanted to play something. He was done with baseball. Football was convenient because he knew he had to get an education. And then three, Zach was mainly the established starter, and the offense didn't fit his style of play. That was as big a factor as anything, because Zach did a lot of run-pass options, different things, and when he did it didn't look very good in practice. And so, you know, ultimately, you know the rest. That's why we changed style of offenses whenever we felt like he was going to be the starter. So.
But as miserable as your first season was with the head guy, you felt like you had to redefine expectations and standards and the culture.
You know, Bill, I don't know if redefining was the best word. It's just that I had a certain vision for what I thought had to happen at Oklahoma State for us to win. And we were very good when Les was here. Les was tremendous for Oklahoma State, and I've learned a lot of football from him. But I had a lot of experience with Oklahoma State, and I just had a certain plan that I thought that we had to follow in order to win here in the long term for a long time. And that was the only way I was comfortable. You know, we could talk about this forever with me, that I have a lot of flaws, but one thing that I'm fairly consistent on is if I believe in something, I have to be able to instill it into players that we're coaching. And, you know, like the scheduling issue, I disagreed with it, so I had a hard time buying into it. So when I was trying to sell what we were trying to accomplish here to the players, I have to back it and feel good about it, or I don't want to try to push it to the players. And, you know, that's just one area that, you know, for something like that, those things concern me. So I just felt like it needed to be done in order for us to win long term. So, anyway.
When you were dismissing really good players, do you remember it having a real jarring effect on the rest of the roster?
Sure do. And it wasn't intended to be that way. That was just the fact of the way things had to operate in order for us to have success. But, you know, a guy would miss class a week later, and he'd come run up to my office sweating and say, I overslept, I missed class, don't kick me off the team. And I felt bad about that, because that's not the image I wanted to portray. It's just a certain way we had to do things. So, good. All right. Thanks.